I'm Kimberly Griffith, help lead the science team at Ombre. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist with 10 years of background within studying the microbial ecosystems, where the majority of that time has been spent on the gut microbiome, as I believe it is truly impactful to not only our health, but any disease state as well. And the literature and research that comes out every single day on this only confirms this more. We're going to talk today about the missing link between gut health and GLP-1 production, endogenous GLP-1 production. But I do want to say this is a complex subject. My goal is to simplify it without doing an injustice to the science, in the hope that you can gain impactful and valuable takeaways that you can impart either in your clinic or with yourself every single day to help support your metabolic health and specifically your natural GLP-1 production. So with that, let's get started with the basics. What is GLP-1? GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It's a naturally occurring hormone produced in the intestinal L cells, which are specialized cells located mainly in the lower small intestine and colon. What does GLP-1 do? We generally can see all around us that GLP-1 helps you lose weight. Its main function is to improve insulin secretion from the pancreas in response to a meal, so the foods you eat, which helps keep blood sugar levels stable. But as you can see in the image, that GLP-1's effects go far beyond just the pancreas. It acts throughout the gut, even the brain, so many different areas. In the small intestine, it slows gastric emptying, meaning it delays how quickly food leaves the stomach. This gives the body more time to absorb nutrients and help you feel full longer, which is vitally important in appetite regulation, and part of the reason why it's recommended to eat slowly and chew a lot. In the colon, GLP-1 actually helps reduce local inflammation on the gut lining, the epithelial lining, and supports a healthy gut lining, which we'll talk about in a few minutes about how important this is when it comes to regulation and production of GLP-1. So what specifically influences GLP-1 secretion? First and foremost, I want you to know GLP-1 secretion is not fixed. You don't have a limited amount of GLP-1 for the day. It can vary greatly depending on several cells or the direct source of GLP-1, but their activity is greatly influenced by the gut microbiota, which we'll speak about, and then the foods they ferment into short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These short-chain fatty acids stimulate L cells to release more GLP-1. And this will be a pathway we talk about the entire webinar. So by supporting our gut environment by way of some strategies we'll speak about, we help our bodies naturally optimize GLP-1 activity. And this supports not only our metabolic health, digestive wellness, but just overall GLP-1 production. My favorite topic, gut microbiota. This is one of the most complex ecosystems in the human body. It's a community of trillions of microorganisms that include bacteria, viruses, fungi that reside in our gastrointestinal tract. They play a vital role in maintaining our digestion, immunity, brain health, cardiovascular health. They really affect every system in your body, but metabolic health, they play a huge part in. So each person's microbiota is unique to them, much like your fingerprint, and its composition strongly influences how effectively we process nutrients. There's so much more we could say about the gut microbiota, but that is just a little bit. We want to speak about now how it affects GLP-1 production. So in the digestive system, the microbiota help break down specific foods into producing short-chain fatty acids, like the ones I mentioned. And then these short-chain fatty acids nourish intestinal cells. They strengthen our gut barrier, And then they communicate with our immune system to help keep inflammation under control, which we know is vitally important when it comes to metabolic health. There are some beneficial bacteria groups known as keystone species, because they just have a vast beneficial effect on our overall health, not just our gut health. Two important examples of these are Akkermansia muciniphila and Faecalibacterium pranitzii. These are probably the two species that are studied the most within the literature, I believe. Specifically Akkermansia muciniphila. It lives in our mucus layer of the intestine and helps maintain a strong gut lining. It has really been linked to metabolic health and metabolic regulation, partly by stimulating the secretion of GLP-1. Within the literature, those that have a metabolic disease tend to have very low levels of Akkermansia as well as Faecalibacterium pranitzii. And Faecalibacterium pranitzii is one of our major butyrate producers. Butyrate fuels our intestinal cells, and then also it signals those L cells to release GLP-1. And this improves our blood sugar control, has anti-inflammatory support, and just general metabolic support. So there are other bacteria. I just want to call out the two most studied bacteria species within the literature when it comes to the gut microbiota's effect on GLP-1 production. But these two together, they not only enhance GLP-1 secretion, but they also help protect the intestinal barrier and reduce systemic inflammation, both key factors in metabolic health. So the main takeaway from this slide is that the microbiota control the function of the enteroendocrine cells. This means that not only do gut microbes kind of influence how these L cells are activated, but they also regulate how many GLP-1 secreting L cells exist in the intestines. All right, let's explore a little deeper how the gut microbiota affects GLP production through these powerful chemical messengers called microbial metabolites. Within the literature, there are two main ways. There are others, but the two main ways are through SCAFA production, short-chain fatty acid production, and bile acid modification. So first, when we eat specific foods, they're fermented by our gut bacteria. And if they're the right foods, they produce the short-chain fatty acids, like I mentioned, the butyrate, propionate, acetate. And then these act as chemical signals that stimulate the L cells, which remember the L cells are responsible for GLP-1 production. This hormone then travels through the bloodstream to stimulate insulin secretion, remember slow gastric emptying, and promoting satiety. So in short, when we feed our microbiota certain foods, our microbiota helps regulate our metabolic health and appetite through these short-chain fatty acid producers. Another microbial pathway influencing GLP-1 production involves bile acids, which are molecules produced by the liver to digest fats. So gut bacteria can actually modify bile acids into secondary forms that act as signaling molecules for GLP-1 release. So this understanding of these microbial metabolites guiding our endogenous GLP-1 secretion provides insight to how we can use our diet or specific prebiotics to be leveraged to improve our metabolic outcomes naturally. So what microbial components found in our gut can suppress GLP-1 response? It's great to know how do we increase it, but we want to guard against what could be suppressing our GLP-1 response. There are a few. The main one we're going to talk about is LPS, or lipopolysaccharides. Lipopolysaccharides are a toxic molecule found on the outer membrane of certain bacteria in your gut. Normally, LPS stay inside your gut where they don't cause a lot of harm. But if your gut lining becomes weak, as in the image on the slide, these LPS molecules can leak into your bloodstream. And then they ignite inflammation through increasing inflammatory cytokines. As far as what causes leaky gut are these gaps. This often happens because of chronic stress, poor diet, what we call the SAD diet, standard American diet, which is low in fiber and high in processed foods, infections, chronic inflammation, environmental toxins can cause this, or overuse of certain types of medications. And when LPS, these lipopolysaccharides, get into your blood, it causes inflammation, which can make your body less responsive to GLP-1, which can lead to problems like insulin resistance or difficulty controlling appetite. One caveat to that is that there is a few research studies showing that LPS can actually increase GLP-1, which can be quite confusing. And this is actually a mechanism of action that your body does to calm the inflammation down. So remember, I mentioned GLP-1 can actually suppress inflammation on the gut lining, the epithelial lining. So when your body first sees elevated levels of LPS, it releases GLP-1 or increases GLP-1 to suppress the inflammation, but this doesn't last long. If LPS stays high for too long, such as a specific type of diet, it shuts down the system. On the other side of that, good bacteria, especially the ones that produce those short-chain fatty acids, help keep your gut lining strong. And that's how you guard against leaky gut, is feeding the bacteria that create the short-chain fatty acids that keep tight junctions. So a strong gut lining acts like a barrier, stopping too much LPS from leaking out, and this keeps inflammation low. And this helps GLP-1 work properly. So the main takeaway from this slide is keeping your gut healthy stops LPS leakage. You want to have a strong, tight gut lining. It also decreases inflammation, helping your body make and use GLP-1 effectively for better metabolic health. So we want to nourish our gut microbiota with the right foods that will keep tight gut lining and guard us against leaky gut. And we'll discuss those in a few slides. But we're going to talk a little bit longer about what else could be negatively impacting GLP-1 production. And that is microbiota dysbiosis, or having a dysbiotic state of your gut microbiota. So an imbalanced gut microbiota, known as dysbiosis, can weaken one of the most essential metabolic regulators, and that is GLP-1. So when the microbial community in our gut shifts away from balance, we have lower levels of these short-chain fatty acid producers, maybe a higher abundance of proteobacteria or pathobionts or pathogens. It affects nutrient signaling, hormone release, the ability to manage blood sugar, so many other areas besides just metabolic health. It definitely has a vast impact on our metabolic health. So first, microbial imbalances such as dysbiotic microbiota reduces GLP-1 secretion. So under healthy conditions, remember, those beneficial microbes ferment specific foods into short-chain fatty acids, and those short-chain fatty acids stimulate our L cells to secrete GLP-1. Works beautifully. But in a dysbiotic state, populations of these short-chain fatty acid producers decline or are already low. And when there's a lower abundance of scaffold producers or butyrate or propionate, then they're not going to stimulate the L cells in the same way, which means lower GLP-1 secretion. And this can directly impair the body's ability to regulate glucose and appetite after meals. This also alters the gut barrier, as we saw on the slide before with leaky gut. Harmful bacteria and their byproducts, especially those lipopolysaccharides, can leak into the bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation. And then this inflammation not only blunts insulin sensitivity, but also suppresses GLP-1 signaling by disrupting receptor function on the pancreas and the brain. So in other words, the problem isn't just about reduced GLP-1 production. It's also that the body becomes less responsive to it. So kind of a double whammy when you're in a dysbiotic state. Also impacts appetite through the gut-brain axis. So reduced GLP-1 activity throws off the body's hunger and satiety cues, and dysbiosis-driven inflammation and weakened hormone signaling can increase cravings and appetite. And particularly we see this for high sugar and high fat foods. And then this fuels just a vicious cycle of poor metabolic control and further microbiota dysbiosis. So the main takeaway from this slide is that microbial dysbiosis doesn't just affect digestion. Sometimes we just think bloating, constipation, diarrhea when we look at microbiota dysbiosis, but it affects us systemically, almost, I would say, in every system in our body. It disrupts the entire metabolic network. So by reducing those short chain fatty acid producers and production, we're increasing inflammation and we're weakening that GLP-1 responsiveness. Now, how do we fix it? What are the strategies we need to support healthy GLP-1 production? It's kind of multifaceted approach. We look at nutrition, targeted supplements, lifestyle influencers actually have pretty big effect as well, and then microbiota assessment for some individuals. So nutritional strategies, we focus on feeding the bacteria in the microbiota that create those metabolites, those short chain fatty acids that stimulate the L cells to release the GLP-1. That's the ultimate goal. And we'll talk about how do we do that? What foods should we be incorporating? Then targeted supplements. We're going to look at specific types of prebiotics that have been shown in the literature to support GLP-1 production and some probiotic strains. And then we don't talk enough, I think, about lifestyle influencers, regular exercise, stress management. I'm going to talk about some other ones. Stool testing provides really valuable insights into personal interventions as well as tracking of the populations of specific species within your gut. We can look at your overall diversity, identify some of those keystone species I called out, like Akkermansia, Municiphilia, Faecalibacterium prownetii. There's many other short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria that have a positive effect on our metabolic health we can look at. We can understand the abundance of lipopolysaccharide producing bacteria. Proteobacteria is a good one to kind of look at. When it expands, it could be an indicator that you're in a dysbiotic state. So really, we want to integrate these strategies that we're going to dive a little deeper in to optimize our endogenous GLP-1 production. So let's put this into action. What does that look like? Nutritional strategies. Food is first. Food is VIP. When you think about the balance of your gut microbiota, food is what you concentrate on. It doesn't matter if you have the best prebiotic, probiotic exercise routine, adequate hydration levels. If you are not feeding the bacteria the foods they like to create these metabolites, you're going to be in an imbalanced state. The foods we eat directly shape our gut microbiome to enhance natural GLP-1 release. And so by nourishing specific bacteria, we're supporting our gut function through these powerfully influential dietary choices. First, I'm going to look at polyphenol-rich foods. Polyphenols are key components of this strategy. Consuming 3 to 5 servings daily. Think berries, pomegranate, green tea, cacao, coffee, apples. End your day with dark chocolate. Even spices like turmeric, the curcumin in it helps lower inflammation, systemic inflammation, and also supports modulating the gut microbial composition in a good way. So these foods stimulate GLP-1 secretion, but what's really cool about polyphenols is that they have also been shown within literature to suppress appetite-stimulating hormones like ghrelin. When we talked about Akkermansia muciniphila and Fagalobacterium pronitii, it's important to remember these bacteria actually love polyphenol-rich foods. Again, all the bacteria have different preferences on foods. They're much like us. If I were to ask everybody, what's your favorite food? We probably would have different ideas of what the best food out there is. Bacteria are much the same, so just got to keep that in mind. And then fiber-rich foods are fundamental to support GLP-1 naturally. The highest density of GLP-1L cells, they're in the colon, and they're stimulated mainly by fiber fermentation and fatty acids. So consistent daily fiber intake is absolutely critical for maintaining this gut endocrine function. Aim for 38 grams of dietary fiber daily, which typically translates to 3 to 5 servings. Whole grains, legumes, fruits, vegetables, nuts. Our gut bacteria ferment these fibers into those short chain fatty acids, which, remember, stimulate the L cells to increase GLP-1 secretion. They also help improve our gut barrier function, helping us have a tight gut lining. Protein and omega-3 fats are also vitally important in regulating GLP-1, including 3 to 4 servings daily of protein-rich foods. Think lean meats, dairy, legumes, alongside omega-3 sources like fatty fish, such as salmon. 2 to 3 times weekly is beneficial, or even plant-based sources like chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts support GLP-1 secretion and also enhance intestinal health. There was a case study I read about a few days ago that mentioned they looked at production post consuming a tofu burger and then regular hamburger. Both had the same caloric counts, and there was actually an increase in GLP-1 production from the tofu burger, mainly because of the difference in fiber. So really keep fiber in your head when you're looking at metabolic health via GLP-1 secretion. And then incorporating fermented foods such as yogurt, kefir, and sauerkraut introduces beneficial bacteria that aid in this GLP-1 signaling. It also diversifies the gut microbiota, which helps keep it balanced. So consuming 1 to 2 servings daily help maintain the gut ecosystem, conducive to hormone regulation. Always keep in mind sugar when it comes to fermented foods, because some of them are extremely high in sugar. And then increase diversity. We want to build a very diverse plate. Remember, if we keep in mind that all these good bacteria like to eat different things, we want to incorporate all different colors of plant-based foods. The recommendation via the American Gut Project usually is 30 different plant-based foods a week. I tend to say shoot for 10 a day. If you build a colorful salad for lunch or dinner, and that can easily be 10. So this kind of nutritional approach leverages this synergy between diet, microbiota balance, and intestinal hormone pathways to naturally enhance your endogenous GLP-1 secretion and just over metabolic well-being. All right, on to supplements. So let's focus on how certain supplements can enhance your own production. And this is via the gut microbiota and the secretion of these short chain fatty acids. So first and foremost, prebiotic fibers. So prebiotic fibers are key supplements that boost GLP-1. And if you don't know, prebiotics are a food source for your beneficial bacteria. So they help boost GLP-1 by enhancing these short chain fatty acid production through fermentation by our gut bacteria. And among these, there's inulin, partially hydrolyzed guar gum, and then resistant starches are effective. And these fibers serve as fuel for our beneficial microbes to generate those microbial metabolites. Specifically, PHGG is gentle on digestion and effectively increases scaffold production, supporting GLP-1 secretion. I did see a good number of studies on partially hydrolyzed guar gum. And then probiotics are another important category of supplements supporting our natural GLP-1 secretion. And this is by modulating the gut microbiota toward a SCAFA producing profile. I did want to give a few strains, specific strains that have demonstrated potent abilities to promote GLP-1 release. Lactobacillus acidophilus LA14 has been well studied for its role in metabolic health and also enhancing gut barrier function. Remember to have tight junctions. Lactobacillus rhamnosus strains LR32, Roselle 11 modulate the gut microbiome and improve metabolic outcomes through GLP activity. And then Bifidobacterium longum BL05 has shown higher GLP-1 secretions. So those are just a few examples. And so we can combine both the prebiotic fibers and these probiotic strains. And these supplements will have like a dual approach to enhance gut microbial metabolism and supporting our endogenous GLP-1 pathways. Lifestyle factors. This is the one that we tend to not really concentrate on enough, but they're so effective. So beyond food and supplements, lifestyle factors or influencers play a critical role in shaping a healthy gut microbiota that supports strong GLP-1 production. So first, stress management. We know chronic stress has an effect on our metabolic health, but it also disrupts our gut microbial diversity. It promotes inflammation, which is linked to leaky gut. So reduced beneficial bacteria has also been associated with elevated stress, which obviously will have an effect on GLP-1 secretion. So managing stress through meditation, deep breathing exercises, yoga helps normalize cortisol levels and then supports this microbial balance and the gut hormone function. Physical exercise, regular moderate exercise has shown in the literature to enhance microbial richness and diversity, and has also been shown to promote butyrate-producing bacteria that stimulate GLP-1 secretion. Sleep, I think this is another one that we know when we have insufficient sleep, we see an effect on our metabolic health, and the research agrees with that. Consistent sleep patterns aligning with natural circadian rhythms help support a balanced microbial community. And then disrupted or insufficient sleep obviously leads to a negative impact on our metabolic health and specifically GLP-1 secretion. So try prioritizing good sleep hygiene, healthy social engagements. There's some really great studies coming out linking mental well-being and social interaction with gut microbial health. And this is via the gut-brain axis. So positive social engagements help reduce stress and promote microbiota that enhance GLP-1 secretion and just general metabolism. Also, there's been a study showing that laughter stimulates the vagus nerve, which I think is pretty great. So healthy social engagements, be around people that make you laugh. And the exposure to nature, spending time outdoors in natural environments expose you to a wide range of microbes, increasing gut microbial diversity and resilience. So activities like gardening, take your gloves off, get in the dirt, walking barefoot outside, or hiking in nature somewhere. All of those can help enhance your microbiota and support general gut health. So to optimize GLP-1 production through our gut microbiota, these lifestyle elements must work in synergy with diet and supplements. They are as important. Food is always first, but they are very important as well. So summary and takeaways. The gut microbiome directly modulates GLP-1. And the great part of that is we are in control of the balance of our gut microbiota. And we make those choices every single day. Our gut microbiota in a dysbiotic state blunts GLP-1 release and increases insulin resistance and cravings and just has a negative effect on our metabolic health. So we want to think of a fiber-rich diet, fiber-rich foods, polyphenols, incorporating specific prebiotics and specific strains of probiotics and healthy proteins and fats. All of this will help support our natural GLP-1 release. And then don't discount those lifestyle influencers. Getting good at sleep, managing our stress, moderate exercise, surrounding yourself with people that make you laugh. All of this reinforces this sustainable strategy towards endogenous or natural GLP-1 production. Here are my references. Thank you for listening, and I hope you are able to find some valuable takeaways that you can incorporate every single day.